Signed event in the state, e-Odisha towards a digital economy. The event shall be celebrating the e-governance initiatives taken by different departments of the state and mark the milestones of ICT implementations across all sectors. With great pleasure, I would like to announce that our chief guest, Shri Naveen Patnaik ji, Honorable Chief Minister of Odisha, has arrived at the event venue and is now going to inaugurate the e-Odisha Expo. The expo has been planned with the aim of enabling private companies and state government departments. Our chief guest, Shri Naveen Patnaik ji, Honorable Chief Minister of Odisha, IT Government of Odisha, as well as the Program Chair of e-Odisha Summit. We have the e-Odisha Summit, being hosted by the Department of Information Technology, Government of Odisha and Odisha Computer Application Centre, and being organized by Ilex Technomedia Private Limited. Privilege of offering our felicitations to the honorable ministers and other dignitaries with bouquets. May we have our colleagues please for this? While the bouquets are arriving, I would like to inform that e-Odisha is aimed to put the spotlight on various initiatives and efforts by the government of Odisha. Okay. To our chief guest, Shri Naveen Patnaik ji, Honorable Chief Minister of Odisha. A huge round of applause, please. To the guest of honor, Shri Raghunath Mohanty, Honorable Minister of IT, Housing and Urban Development, Government of Odisha. Thank you, sir. Shri R.S. Sharma ji, DG and Mission Director, UIDAI, Government of India. Shri Madhusudan Pari ji, Commissioner cum Secretary, Department of IT, Government of Odisha. And Mr. Ranveer Singh, Group Director, Government Affairs, Microsoft India. Thank you, sir. Without wasting any further time, I would be inviting Shri Madhusudan Pari, Commissioner of Company Secretary, Department of IT, Government of Odisha, and also the Program Chair of this event to kindly come and deliver his welcome address. Pari, sir, please.
Respected Chief Guest and Honorable Chief Minister, Odisha. Respected guest of honor, Honorable IT Minister, Odisha. Respected guest, DG, UID, AI, Shri R.S. Sharma ji. Guests on the dais, invitees, and all the participants of the first e-Odisha Summit. We are holding this summit basically to showcase the e-governance initiative that has been started in the state and also compare them with what is happening across the country. As you know, Odisha has recently passed the Right to Public Service Delivery Act and it has been made effective from the 1st of January 2013 with 34 services. As more and more services get into the ambit of the Right to Public Services Delivery Act, we will need e-governance or the IT backbone to not only deliver the services to citizens, but also to monitor whether these services are being delivered in time or not. Many departments have initiated e-governance programs, but as of today, we are working in silos. Many departments have databases which are not talking to each other. So we have situations where an income tax pay also may be availing below poverty line ration. Similarly, many other issues are there. So the time has come for going for an integrated governance. When we break down all the silos that is happening, they are in various departmental databases and they talk to each other and we can target our services and we can deliver better services. I will not take much time. I take this opportunity to welcome Honorable Chief Minister who despite his busy schedule, he has taken time for this summit. He has to travel to his constituency immediately after this opening ceremony. He has taken a lot of interest not only to facilitate e-governance initiative in the state, but driving the OSWA's Odisha Secretariat automation program, where many departments have now come on board. The files are being processed online and notes and letters are being processed online in the computers and physical files are giving away to electronic files. Similarly, we hope with his guidance and support we will be able to go for many initiatives. He has also approved the MOU to be signed with Bharat Broadband Limited, by which the National Optical Fiber Network will be laid to all the 6,236 panchayats with 100 Mbps connectivity, which is going to happen over next 18 months or so, and by that we will be able to provide services at the panchayat level. I welcome Honorable Minister IT who has taken over the charge recently, and with his guidance we have recently notified the cyber cafe rules and we are going to notify the ESD, Electronic Service Delivery rules, which has been now approved and going for notification. So I welcome Mr. R.S. Sharma, who has traveled all the way from Delhi to be with us, to support us in making integrated governance possible with the EYD facility that is coming across the country, and many states are taking benefit. Now we will also taking that benefit. I welcome you, sir. I welcome on stage Mr. Ranvir Singh of Microsoft. Microsoft is being used across the many platforms, and Mr. Ravi, who is actually driving behind this WhatsApp summit. I welcome all the participants, senior secretaries of the department, many partners who are working with the government, and all the delegates from the districts. I hope you will have a fruitful session in the day and you will go back happy and enlightened. Thank you.
It's a great pride for us that with this event, we are also releasing the March special issue of eGov magazine, which is Asia's premier magazine on e-governance. Shri Madhusudan Padi is the guest editor of this issue. The issue has taken a broad overview of e-governance implementations from across Odisha. It features interactions with a range of officials from the state to gain a good insight on the major achievements and challenges in e-governance. I now request the Honourable Ministers and dignitaries to kindly release the special issue. And we wish that many more such issues are in the making for future. I now request our eminent guest of honor, Sri Raghunath Mohanty, Honourable Minister, IT, Housing and Urban Development, Government of Odisha, to kindly share a few words with us. Sri
Honourable Chief Minister of Odisha, Sri Naveen Patnaik, Director General UIDAI, Sri R.S. Sharma, Secretary IT, CMS Padi, distinguished guests, delegates, members from electronic and print media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be here on this one-day e-Odisha Summit being organized by the Department by the Government of Odisha in association with the elect Technomedia. The Summit offers a unique platform for knowledge exchange and a networking for key decision makers, IT experts, administrators, policy makers, and other stakeholders. There will be parallel session on IT in governance, IT in education, and IT in health during the day. And I hope the delegates present in this hall will take advantage of this. The concept of good governance has not changed since ancient time. I open government arms and instills deep trust in its citizens, thus involving into a participative, collaborative and inclusive government. In order to realize the vision empowerment of citizens by feedback-driven and outcome-oriented decision making with policy formulation are must. Technology can be used in innovative ways. For this, emerging technologies like cloud computing, mobile governance, analytics, and 4G are the key enabler towards democratizing data, citizen-centric service, and participatory democracy. As you know, the Government of Odisha is giving high priority for promotion of IT and ITs sector in Odisha, and number of e-governance innovatives have been implemented in the state in last few years. The state government, under the dynamic leadership of our esteemed Chief Minister, is also bringing out with a new industry-friendly ICT policy 2013 for the state to provide more and more initiative to the IT units, both for software and ESDM sector, in order to develop a strategic roadmap for promotion of ESDM sector in Odisha. The state government has recently engaged the Indian Electronic and Semiconductor Association to conduct the study and prepare the roadmap. The e-Odisha Summit is organized at a time when we in Odisha are celebrating the Entrepreneurs Week. Keeping this focused attention in view, the Department of IT will be happy to observe the e-Odisha Summit annually during this time. This will help working towards creating an enabling environment, promoting an enterprise culture, developing a favorable environment, and finding innovative means to support the development towards creating a vibrant Odisha. I would like to conclude with these remarks that Bhubaneswar has the potential to emerge as a Silicon Valley in the next 5 years. Thank you to all. Vande Utral Janani.
To have the presence of Honorable Chief Minister of Odisha, Shri Naveen Patnaik ji with us. Shri Naveen Patnaik ji has more than 1.5 decades of experience in Indian politics. Currently in his third consecutive term as the Chief Minister of Odisha, Shri Patnaik has solely dedicated himself to the development of the state. His leadership and interest in ICT initiatives has led to the growth of ICT in the state of Odisha. We are honoured that despite his hectic schedule, Shri Patnaik has taken out time for this event. May I now take the opportunity of requesting the chief guest to kindly enlighten us with his words of wisdom. Shri Patnaik, please.
Honorable Minister Shri Raghunath Mahanti, DG and Mission Director, UI ADI, Shri R.S. Sharma, Secretary IT, Shri Madhusudan Padi, Shri Gupta, Shri Singh, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here today to inaugurate this one-day e-Odisha Summit here in Bhubaneswar. I welcome the delegates coming from across the country, to Bhubaneswar, which is a unique city that bears the testimony of our great heritage, as well as the city is on its way to become one of the most modern in our country. I am told that this one-day summit will comprise of parallel thematic track conferences on IT in governance, IT in education, and IT in health. The event will play a key role in highlighting the IT-based practices, needs and demands, and in the process engaging multiple stakeholders in capacity building of IT drivers in our state. This would provide a unique platform for delegates to exchange their experiences, ideas, and opportunities in the IT field. The delegates who come from different districts of Odisha will benefit from such interaction. Undoubtedly, the IT sector is today at the top of our state government's agenda, and Odisha is trying its best to be in the forefront of the IT revolution. 4 of the major IT players, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, and Mahindra Satyam, have established their development centers in Bhubaneswar. It is a matter of pride that IT exports from the state was more than rupees 1,600 crores during the year 2011-12, with a growth of 17% in comparison to the previous year. The Software Technology Park of India at Bhubaneswar is one of the oldest STPIs in the country. Apart from Bhubaneswar, the STPI, Bharatpur and Rourkela are also playing a vital role for employment in the IT sector. A number of e-governance initiatives undertaken by the state government have proved to be very effective in Odisha. Our state government has developed a number of successful e-governance initiatives, including e-registration, e-treasury, e-commercial tax, e-abhijog, SAMS, e-district, e-dispatch, e-municipality, and many more. I am happy to note that 2 such e-governance initiatives of Odisha have won this year's prestigious National E-Governance Awards. The government of Odisha is committed in creating an open environment to attract investment from IT industries and foreign investors. In order to promote such investments, IT special economic zones are being established at InfoCity and InfoValley here in Bhubaneswar. To accommodate future development in the IT sector, particularly in electronic system design and manufacturing, ESDM, the government is also developing one IT investment region on the southern part of Bhubaneswar. My government is taking several steps to build Bhubaneswar as the #1 IT destination among the Tier 2 cities of the country. With these words, I congratulate the Department of IT, OCAC, and LS Technomedia for organizing this e-government, this e-Odisha summit in Bhubaneswar, and hope there will be meaningful discussion during the day on the blend of ICT with government processes so as to make the government more efficient, effective, and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Due to some urgent official commitments, the Honorable Chief Minister has to leave the program now. Sir, it has been a true honor to have your valuable presence as the chief guest of e-Odisha Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, may we please ovation to our chief guest, who despite all his hectic schedules made a point to come and fulfill his commitment of being a part of e-Odisha Summit, the first such event of its kind in the state. Thank you so much, sir. To give his address, Shri Sharma ji, please.
Gupta, other friends on the dais, friends, I'm really honored to be here in this Odisha summit, and heard the Honorable Chief Minister who talked about, and the Minister of IT who talked about the introduction of the Electronic Service Deliveries Act and the number of initiatives which Odisha has taken to make the life of common person easy, so that he is able to get the services of the government at a convenient manner at an affordable cost. So I think the environment here in this state is quite conducive to development and initiatives and innovations in the IT sector to be taken, so as to basically make the delivery of public services more efficient, more transparent, more cost effective, accessible, and all that. What I'm going to do in the next 15-20 minutes is to share with you what we at the UID Authority of India are doing in terms of implementing the Aadhaar project in this country, and how that project will be able to be leveraged to deliver these public services. So essentially what we are doing and how this work which we are doing will be useful to the people of this country. So let me begin that we started about 3.5 years back in the August of 2009 when the UID Authority of India was set up, and Mr. Nandan Lekani, as you know, became our first chairman. And then we started designing this project, and 1 year was taken to conceptualize, to design, and finally to put in place the back-end infrastructure to start implementation of the project. And the first number was delivered on 29th of September 2010, about 2.5 years back, in Maharashtra by the Honorable Prime Minister. And since then, we have done about 300 million enrollments. In fact, 290 million Aadhaars have been issued, and about 30-40 million numbers of enrollments are with us. So one thing which I want to say up front is that normally identity projects are done with security in mind. Wherever they have been done, their basic objective has been to ensure that there are no illegal immigrations, there are no border control and all those issues. This is the project which is being done with completely development as a focus in mind. So the basic objective of the project is development and also inclusion. And the context is that there are a large number of people in our country who do not have any kind of documentary proof to prove their existence or prove their identity. And the result is that they are devoid of accessing many services or many formal systems. Because as you know, when you go to some place, the first question is asked, who are you? Prove your identity, prove your existence. So therefore, because of this reason, they don't have an ID, and therefore they are not able to access many formal systems. This is the context number one. The other context is that we, during the last 2-3 decades, we have started focusing more on the individual benefit delivery systems in our country, which is basically you start the NREGA scheme for providing employment to people. You have the public distribution system to provide subsidized ration to people. You provide old age pensions to people. You provide scholarships to students, midday meals. So essentially, they are all individual-centric schemes. And obviously, each individual is supposed to get one benefit out of that. So old age pension, one will get. Ration, 1 unit will be given to a person. Now, because of this system, there is a lot of incentive if I create more than one identity. So if I have 2 identities, I will be able to get 2 ration cards. So there are states in this country where the number of ration cards is 1.5 times the total population. So what has happened, there are a lot of bogus and fakes and duplicate ration cards and duplicate identities, which actually try to corner more benefits than what is due to them. And that has resulted in a huge amount of leakage taking place. So one estimates that even in public distribution system, there is a huge leakage, and estimates vary. Some people say 30%, some say 20%, depends from state to state also. So essentially the idea was, how do you create a system where one person will be able to get only one identity and therefore will not be able to game the system, therefore will not be able to take more than one unit of advantage. So the whole structure was essentially, this is the context. And interestingly, the name of the authority which was created to do this task was Unique Identification Authority of India. And I have never been able to figure out even till now, after doing 3.5 years of work there, whether the authentication and identification is unique or whether the authority is unique. This adjective of uniqueness, whether it applies to identification or to the authority. So uniqueness has been such an overarching kind of objective with which we have been created. So how do you ensure that? So these are the two contexts. Now comes the question that when we designed the system, we had taken a couple of basic decisions. One is the voluntary nature of this identity. And that flows from the fact that it's a development initiative, it's not a regulatory or security initiative. Therefore, we had said anybody who wants to come in and enroll themselves or herself is welcome. Anybody who does not want to come in is also welcome. So that's one part, voluntary nature. But let me say with that, while it is voluntary from the authority's perspective, the respective service delivery domains can make it mandatory. So for example, government of Odisha may decide that when you have a huge covering, you can decide that anybody who is getting an old age pension and in order to eliminate fakes and duplicates must have an Aadhaar number. So the discretion to declare it mandatory for certain benefit delivery systems is left on the individual domains or individual ministries. Secondly, we decided that there's a huge sort of passion of these smart cards. And today it's not so much there, 3.5 years it was much more. So everybody thought that smart cards are the one which will solve the problem of the country. You have a smart card, the result was that people have more smart cards than their pocket size. And they don't deliver much. So essentially we decided we will not give them smart cards, we will just give a number. And that number can be put on any kind of cards you like. So essentially we said it will be just a number and we'll convey that number to a person. And I will come back to the fact as to why a number is more effective than the smart card. So that's one part. Third thing was it's a random number. So by a number you can't figure out whether a person is from Odisha or from Bengal or from Bihar. It's a pan-India, one number, a random number, and that eliminates all the possibility of profiling, of kind of figuring out as to whether a person is old, age, young, male, female, which caste, which creed, which language, which mother tongue, nothing. So that's another design part. Then there was another question. Whom do you give this number to? Give this number to all citizens or to the residents? And the government had taken a very conscious decision that we shall give it to all residents. So this number proves only identity. It does not prove your nationhood or citizenship. It basically says you are a resident of India. So those even foreigners who are living in India and they satisfy the residency criteria as defined under the Citizenship Act shall be entitled to this number. Now another important issue was, what problem are we trying to solve? And when we started, people said, oh, why don't you collect the minority, whether they follow the minority or not, so that minority scholarships can be latched onto this. Some people said, collect BPL status also, collect marital status also, all kinds of things. We took a decision that this is merely an identity. It is not an eligibility. Normally, identity and eligibility are clubbed together. If you have a driving license, that driving license is essentially an eligibility document which tells the authority that you are entitled to drive. You have a driving training or you can drive. Implicit in that eligibility is also identity, because you can use it at the airport to sort of go inside and say that you are so and so. We decided eligibility is something which is left to the domains, because that requires a little more than identity. So eligibility in some sense is an application over identity. So we designed it in such a manner that it will basically be a core identity platform on which all applications can be built. And because core identity remains the common problem of all eligibility domains, so if we solve this common problem, we would have solved a large part of every domain's problem. And then it becomes easy for the domains to build their applications on this core identity. So that's very important distinction which one will have to remember, because people always ask me, there are so many cards, driving license is there, photo ID card is there, election ID card is there, why the hell do you want another card? So first of all we tell them, friends, this is not a card. And secondly we tell them, this is not an eligibility document, this is an identity document. This identity document can be used to build a lot of things. So that's one part. Secondly, we could have designed it as an application, for example, for voter ID or for something. We said no, we will design it as a platform. Now, platform nature of any delivery or any offering makes it possible to build applications on top of it. And therefore we call it Aadhaar. Aadhaar, as you know, in most of the Indian languages stands for platform or foundation or whatever. So we said this is merely an identity foundation on which applications can be built. And that is why it is more useful than a particular application which you have designed or devised. Now, one is, there are a lot of people who say privacy, if you are collecting so much of data, you will violate privacy. So we designed certain principles saying that we will not allow the downloading of any data from our data center. So if you can't ask me that here is an Aadhaar number, tell me whose Aadhaar number it is. Or you can't ask me, this is the person, tell me what is the Aadhaar number. So that, we will respond only in yes and no, and we do not allow download of any data from our data center. So that's also, it takes care of the issue of privacy. We have taken steps to ensure security of the data. Now, one more important part is, this is the world's first online identity system, which means your identity is on the cloud, and all of your IT professionals connected the ID. What we are designing is from a situation of no ID in which people did not have ID to a situation where they have their ID on the cloud, which is verifiable anytime, anywhere. So this is the basic difference between the identity systems wherever they are and this. And this is the world's first online identity system. And you can authenticate your identity. You can go to any place just using a mobile phone with a fingerprint reader. You can prove that you are the person who you claim to be. And we have a little stall here. You can probably, many of you who have got Aadhaar numbers, can actually do this online authentication. So that's an extremely powerful concept, and I'll explain to you how this helps in service delivery. How this makes service delivery possible and efficient. So that's another part. Now coming back to the uniqueness question. How do we design a system which is unique? So suppose I go there and say my name is R.S. Sharma and I get a number, and I go again and say my name is S.K. Verma and I get another number. So how do you ensure that one gets only one number? And the only way to ensure at that point of time was essentially to use biometrics. Because nature has somehow designed that everybody's biometrics are distinct. So therefore, you give your 10 fingerprints and you give your iris, and then we will give you a number. Now, because two people's fingerprint and irises don't match, so if this person goes again with a different name and his data goes back to us, our data center will tell, no, this person is already enrolled and therefore his nomination will be rejected. So essentially we ensure uniqueness by using these biometric attributes. And the interesting part is, when we started this project, We were told nowhere in the world you have a database of size of 1 billion people. The only databases they have are of 4 or 5 million people. And they said on this database size, and this database was also of European people who don't do manual labor the way our people do, and therefore their fingerprints are quite good. And they said you can have only 95% accuracy, which means that 5% people have a chance of getting 2 IDs. You know, their things are same, but they will not match. And 5% of 120 crores is 6 crores. So we were told that you can't do it. However, fortunately, if you have an iris pattern also captured, iris plus 10 fingerprints, they will give you an accuracy level of 99% plus. Unfortunately, even 1% is 1.2 crores. So some people, when they get one fellow with 2 Aadhaars, they jump saying, oh, this is a scandal. We tell them, friends, no system in the world is 100% perfect. You can't design a system which is 100% perfect. There are people who will have biometrics. There are people who will have no eyes. There are people who have no fingerprints. And you can't expect them to be left out of the system. If you want to design an accurate system, you will not be able to design an inclusive system. And if you want inclusiveness as your objective, then you can't have accuracy. So you have to have a balance. And we believe, whatever we have done thus far, that the system is 99.96% accurate, which means it's still 0.04%, which is about 5 lakhs. 5 lakh people will end up having 2 identities. However, the good part is that because all the identities are in the central identities repository, so whenever we get, okay, this guy has got 2 IDs, and we confirm it, we'll be able to cancel one. And once you cancel one, he may have a letter with him. But that letter is useless because in all service deliveries, we are going to use online authentication. So once his switch is off, this guy is absolutely not able to authenticate. So therefore, we have the capability, because of the design of the system, to continue improving it, continue cleaning the data, continue mining the data, so as to achieve the desired level of accuracy. So that's how this system is designed. Let me just deal a couple of minutes on the issue of one part. I must say, it is the largest database in the world already. The largest database in the world is 110 million by US visit, where they collect data of all the guys who visit US. We already have about 290 million numbers. So we have the largest database, and we have a structure which will keep on increasing and expanding. Now let me come back to the last part, which is, why does this number become a powerful enabler for delivery of services? So the first part is, the uniqueness property of this number enables that you will be able to eliminate duplicates and fakes. And that is the first application states are doing. So many states who are doing, for example, there was a big racket in Maharashtra, where in the name of scholarship to the students, this whole money was being given to the colleges. So one college will say, I've got 1,000 students. Give me the name, they will give the names. Other will say, I've got another 1,000 ones. Give me the name, they will take these fellows' names. So one student will figure in 6 colleges. And because one has no method of figuring out the name matching, etc., so we will continue to give. So the number of students will be more than 1.5 times the actual number of students studying anywhere, because every student is being shown everywhere. It's like a mid-day meal story also in these schools, we all know, where a child is being shown in this school, that school, many multiple schools. So first thing which they did was, give me the UID number. So once you start having UID number, you can straight away check whether a fellow is in one school or not. Now number checking is much more easy than the name checking or name matching. So this is the first application people are using, and we believe, and in fact the NIPFP, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, has done a study which actually demonstrates the internal rate of return of this project to be 53%, which means that in a couple of 1 year time, just using it on some schemes, just to use deduplication of the beneficiary list, you will be able to get the value of this project back. So that's the one part of power. The other thing which is very peculiar and very special to this project is the capacity to authenticate online. Now what it means is that you go to any service domain and there is a small device, we call it micro ATM or you can call it whatever it is. And you don't need to take any card or any other smart card, any nothing. You just go there and for any service, if you are a beneficiary, you just put in your Aadhaar number or name and just put in your fingerprint. And the UID Authority of India data center will revert back to you saying that yes, this is the right person. Now that's an extremely powerful enabler because then what the Honorable Minister was talking about, Electronic Service Delivery Act, you can make it possible that you are delivering these services to the person who deserves the services. You are giving the salary, NREG and wages to the person who has worked hard, toiled hard, not to somebody who is a middleman. So essentially you can ensure that the benefit goes to the person who deserves it after proper authentication. So this is, and interestingly, the round trip time of this authentication is less than 5 seconds. So essentially from the device it goes to wherever, it travels in the cyberspace, and because the signals, as you know, travel at the speed of light, so it comes back in a couple of seconds back. So you are able to authenticate. Now this authentication platform becomes extremely important. Let's take an example of banking. Now banking, what are the challenges? One challenge is that you are not able to open an account. Generally, if you don't have a proof of ID and proof of address. Aadhaar is now a sufficient KYC or know your customer for opening a bank account. Therefore, if you have an Aadhaar letter, you will be able to open a bank account. So that's one part. It allows access to the banking system. Secondly, the government will now not need to know the bank account number of the person. Government needs to know just the Aadhaar number. So as we all know, your Aadhaar number becomes a kind of URL of the person. So you just know Aadhaar number and you know where that person is or who that person is. So actually you can use this Aadhaar number to transfer money to a person's bank account. And that is how the entire direct benefit transfer, which is being done by the Government of India in 51 districts of the country from 1st of January, that's how it is being done. Whereby you transfer the money using Aadhaar number as the pointer, Aadhaar number as the financial address of the person. So I may change my bank account, doesn't make a difference, so long as, because Aadhaar is a very invariant number. Everything in life will change except Aadhaar. You may become rich from poor, you may become married from unmarried, you may have other kinds of transformations in your life, but Aadhaar will remain the same. So therefore you can use Aadhaar to push money to people's account. So you open an account using Aadhaar, government pushes in money to your account using Aadhaar, and finally, using this micro ATM, the device which I talked about, which does the online authentication, using that and the business correspondent to hold that micro ATM, you can do a transaction. So you can withdraw money from your account, you can do account-to-account transfer, you can require balance, you can deposit money into your account in a real-time online manner. So essentially, Aadhaar becomes an enabler for opening an account, access. Aadhaar becomes an address, and Aadhaar becomes a facility to transact your accounts. So this is the power of authentication and the identity which this gives. We are doing a lot of experiments. For example, just to share with you, we are doing PDS in Andhra Pradesh, in East Godavari district, where the person comes to the fair price shop, he just authenticates using Aadhaar, draws the ration, which actually updates the inventory at the back end of the ration PDS department, and then takes the ration, pays the money. Now, the PDS department of the state has a completely real-time online inventory as to which shop had conducted how many transactions and how much it has gone. The ration shop dealer cannot not say that Mr. X had got the ration without distributing it to Mr. X, therefore he does now. Now he cannot say because X has indeed authenticated his presence at the ration shop. And similarly, Mr. X also cannot say that I did not get the ration. So all the complete accountability and transparency into this transaction will ensure that the entire black marketing, entire opaqueness into this system goes away. So previous experiment is being done in Andhra Pradesh. The NREGA payments have been done in Jharkhand. Old age pensions have been done in Maharashtra, then Tripura. So there are a large number of experiments have taken place, and these experiments preceded the DBT program of the Government of India, which means we have perfected the technology of authentication. Yes, there will be 1% or 2% people who will not be able to authenticate because of the deformity in the system, their fingers or whatever. But for that, you have to have some XML management system, and 1% or 2% is not really a major issue. If you are able to clean a large part of the system, I think you have achieved a great job. So this is what is being done there. In the private sector also, telecom. For example, currently for getting a SIM card, you have to have some proof of ID or proof of address, and you go there and the fellow xeroxes it. And after that, he keeps the Xerox copy and, SIM cards are issued. Telecom companies are paying fine every year to issuing SIM cards to unauthorized people or, bad people or whatever. Aadhaar enables you to electronically get a SIM card. So what happens is you go there and you say, I am so and so. This is my Aadhaar number. You authenticate on that device and you authorize that shop to get a digital copy of your Aadhaar transmitted from our data center to this data center. So essentially a digital copy of Aadhaar travels from Bangalore to whatever is Vodafone's data center, and you get a SIM which is instantly activated. So it's a paperless transaction which is completely accountable and transparent. So this is the way many services can be actually automated. And this electronic KYC which we have started, which basically means digitally signed document going to the service provider's database, enabling him to do a verification, whatever is feasible and possible now. So that's what is happening. As you are aware, because of the potential duplication, because NPR were also doing an exercise and we were also doing this exercise, the Government of India had taken a decision that in some states, National Population Register under the RGI, they will do the enrollments, and in some places UIDAI through the state government will get the enrollments done. And Odisha actually has fallen into the first category where the Registrar General of India is doing the enrollments. I was happy to see that already 34% of the population, 1.4 crores out of 4.19 crores, has already been covered by the Registrar General of India. And about 50% of that basically about 60 lakh people have already been given unique IDs. Because by the way, the front-end systems are different in the sense that agencies are different. But the data collection is taking place as per UID standards in the software given by UID Authority of India. So therefore, all this data, whether collected by RGI or whether collected by state government, it all goes to our data center. We all deduplicate nationwide and issue Aadhaar numbers and communicate those numbers to people. So as far as the enrollment process is concerned, some different agencies are doing enrollments, but the processing is concerned, processing is being done, Aadhaar generation is being done by UID Authority of India. Therefore, the further applications of Aadhaar will also we will facilitate that, and Mr. Padi had last met in Hyderabad and he requested, sir, you should not give us a step-motherly treatment. We are, just because somebody else is doing the enrollment. I said, no, Mr. Padi, please be rest assured that UID Authority of India is fully behind Odisha to make this entire exercise a successful exercise, and therefore we will do everything possible like we are doing in other states to ensure that pilots are done here. The Odisha government is able to integrate Aadhaar into their delivery systems, and we will be fully behind them. I was very happy to note that there are as many as 3 districts where the enrollment, Bolangir, Puri and one more district, I'm forgetting the name, where you have done more than 80% enrollment. And actually these are fit cases or fit districts where you can start the public service delivery using
Aadhaar project. Now I request Mr. Ranveer Singh, Group Director, Government Affairs, Microsoft India, to kindly address the audience. Mr.
the Honorable IT Minister, DG UIDI, IT Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here today as part of the summit, and I would like to thank the state government for providing us this opportunity. It's always great to listen to Mr. R.S. Sharma when he starts talking about Aadhaar, because that subject is so interesting. You can continue to listen to him, especially for people like us who have been in the e-governance space. You look at it and you realize that there are so many challenges that each of the governments face today. And not only the challenges, but there are also some huge opportunities for the governments to improve the citizen service in the country. In fact, most of these challenges and opportunities that exist today with the local government or even the federal government or the central government, they are quite common, not only in our country but across the world. Of course, there are individual priorities that exist between one government and the other. And from Microsoft, we have relevant service solution, citizen service solution frameworks available, and we work very closely with the governments to support them in their endeavor to provide those services and to prioritize their service delivery objectives. If we look at some of the technology megatrends today, you will notice that mobility is one of the big ones up there. Why? Maybe the cloud is an all-encompassing technology trend. When we look at mobility and we look at India as a country, we find that the mobile penetration in the country is much higher than PC penetration, and that's going to lead to a situation where most of the services in the country will have to be necessarily delivered through a mobile handset device. In fact, earlier when Sharma was talking about the Aadhaar implementation, he spoke about the mobile ATM devices, and that's also a step in that direction only. Today, you would remember, some 25 years back, at least I remember, when we used to travel, or maybe more than 25 years back, when we used to travel for vacation, and you had to travel from one place to the other, and you had a break in between. If you wanted to do a reservation, you would need to send a telegram, or get a telegram confirming that everything has been done. Once PRS was implemented by the railways, all that became very easy. But today, if you look back, even PRS is not sufficient. Today, you have your online bookings happening. You also have your e-ticket getting delivered on your mobile set, which is sufficient for you to travel in the train. So mobile solution, mobile as a technology is going to be extremely important going ahead. In the country, in India, we have seen successes on some of these technological trends by way of certain e-governance programs which have been launched. For example, e-Mamta has been quite successful in Gujarat and maybe in Rajasthan as well. So we see this as one of the technologies which is really going to grow. Social networking is another area which has been booming. We have seen examples of this worldwide, where some of these revolutions which have happened in the last few years, the social media stepped in and played a big role. Delhi police recently sent out messages saying that they would want to use Facebook to get feedback from the citizens. So in India also, there are agencies, there are service providers who are wanting to use the social media to enhance the service delivery to the citizens of the country. Big data is something that again got covered when we were earlier listening on Aadhaar. That's one area where we have a huge opportunity to utilize the data. Today what's happening is that in most of these initiatives, whether it's railways, whether it's I would say UIDI, because UIDI is definitely using that data, but a whole lot of other opportunities we have that data, we are compiling that data, but we are not necessarily really using that data to the advantage of the citizens. That's one area where one has to look at how to use big data to deliver better services to the citizens. And lastly, on the cloud, it's going to be extremely important, especially when we look at our country. We still see a lot of work that needs to happen in the area of education, in the area of healthcare, and cloud services are going to play a big role towards that step. We are seeing that happening. For example, AICTE is currently using the cloud to use and provide certain productivity tools to its students. And the number of students which are using those productivity tools is close to about 50 lakhs today, and it's going to go up to about 75 lakhs. All on the cloud without any cost. For a country like ours, in India, where cost is a big issue, especially in education, that's a big step forward. And we look at cloud as a big technology lever ahead. Now, when we talk to some of the government leaders in the country, what you see here are some of the questions which get asked. Most of the people in the government, they have questions related to how to address the citizen service requirements that they are committed to. How do they make sure that capacity gaps are covered immediately? Building capacity in India is a big challenge. One of the biggest challenges we see in e-governance rollouts is building capacity. And that's now becoming one of the priority areas. Any e-governance project that has to succeed in the country, capacity building is going to be. That's one of the priorities of most of the government officials. Also, we look at, as I mentioned earlier, it's also important for a government leader to see how the data that has been collected, how is it analyzed, and how decision making is done on that, rather than just collecting that data. When we look at an effective citizen service solution framework, we identify and we look at three broad pillars on this. One is the service delivery and engagement with the citizen. The second is the workplace modernization. And the third is what we call as the service delivery and insights for the government leaders. So briefly, what it means is that when we look at service delivery and engagement, what we are talking about here is an improved service delivery. Like I mentioned earlier, on the subject of railway ticket booking, the expectations, the needs of the citizen will keep changing. The needs that existed 25 years back and the needs that existed 10 years back and what they exist today will continue to change. And today the technology is available to help the government provide those services. One of the examples is with the ESI Corporation, Ministry of Labour. They are primarily in the space of providing healthcare and insurance services to the citizens at a certain level of salary, which is below a certain level. Now, the ESI service, healthcare service, till some time back was available to a citizen only in the city where that person is residing. Just because they did not have any automation, it was not very connected, and service was just not available. Today, with the automation of ESI, any citizen who is a member of ESI Corporation can travel across the country and avail of the healthcare services across the country. Healthcare being an important area for the country today, it's a big step forward. Although it's a very basic kind of an IT automation, but it's a big step forward. So we see demands like these, we see needs like these coming in from the citizens on a continuous basis, and the governments will have to do something to provide those necessary services. And of course, IT is the right way to go with that. What we are at Microsoft is that whatever needs that are as workplace by any office worker needs to be similar to for example, this policeman, which is a certain police station, which is helping him use the day. Obviously, the tools that he is using at the police station is much more easy than the modernization of workplace. It has to be user-friendly. It has to be something the literacy level, the IT level, is still a long way to go. Lastly, we are having a lot in the law for this solution paper. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you once again.
CEO of Let's Technomedia Private Limited to give his vote of thanks. Dr. Gupta, please.
Good morning. It's an honor to be at Odisha with e-Odisha. And I will first of like to thank the Secretary IT, Shri Padiji, and the government officials here who have been very helpful in building up this event. I'm also thankful to the Honorable CM, Honorable Minister of IT, Shri R.S. Sharma ji, UID, and Ranveer Singh ji from Microsoft, who have taken pains to be here in spite of their hectic schedules. I thank you all, and especially the various government officials who are present here to learn about governance. I'm also thankful to our sponsors and educators, which include Microsoft, IBM, Department of IT, Government of Odisha, OCEC in particular, which has been our almost home for last few months. Especially I would like to acknowledge Secretary IT and Aditya and the team who have been very, very helpful. Department of Health and Family Welfare, Government of Odisha, Department of Food and Civil Supply and Consumer Welfare, and Department of Horticulture, UID Department, Mastic, SafeNet, ASF, NIIT, OSL, Jebra, Sahaj, Basics, and many other companies who have been given encouragement and support to build this unique event of Odisha in the state of Odisha. And also we are grateful to our nominees of awards. First time we are doing Odisha awards, and we got more than 70 applications from all over Odisha. So we are very, very happy about it. We will have a gala evening in the awards in the evening. I will request you all to be present. And we have a very interesting day, which are going around electronic service delivery, inclusive framework for governance on security, safety, and education and health. So I will encourage you all to interact and listen to all our speakers. And I welcome you all again at the Grand Odisha event. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. We have a little tribute that we need to give to all our dignitaries who are on the stage. So may I call upon the presenters, please? May we have the shawls on the stage, please? I can for another 2 minutes. Our honorable guest of honor, Sri Raghunath Mohanty, Honorable Minister IT, Housing and Urban Development, Government of Odisha. Sri R.S. Sharma, DJ and Mission Director, UIDAI, Government of India. Mr. Ranveer Singh, Group Director, Government Affairs, Microsoft India. I request Dr. Gupta to now felicitate our program chair, Sri Madhusudan Padiji. Thank you, dignitaries and Honorable Minister, for being a part of eOdisha Summit and being a part of the grand inaugural. A huge round of applause, please. A little announcement is also here with the tea break. I announce that speakers, exhibitors and sponsors, please note that the tea is upstairs in the bowling alley on first floor. And for others, delegates, you can kindly go to the swimming pool at the ground floor. I repeat, for speakers, exhibitors and sponsors, the tea is upstairs in bowling alley.